Hello, hello. Welcome to our podcast Mindset2Results. And today our guest is Sanga Purdeep, and he is the CEO of Sanga Worldwide. And today we are going to speak about performance, how to be high performer, achieve big results, and have that life harmony between work and between personal life. Hi, Pradeep.
Hi, Elena. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
You are most welcome. So let us speak about this important topic today, because so many people have big goals in life,
hmm
but they just don't find that harmony. If they have big goals, they can sacrifice their personal life because they go all in business and forget about their health,
hmm
about maybe importance of spending quality time with their families, with their children.
Yeah.
So it is really very powerful topic, and I'm sure that many people who are listening today will benefit from the knowledge and your experience.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I appreciate that.
So tell us a little bit about you. What is your story? Why you decided to do what you do?
Yeah, so I'm here in Canada. I was born and raised in Canada. I grew up in Canada. My parents were immigrants from India. Um, I'm going to try to make it as short as I can, but I grew up. So my parents worked hard and then eventually bought their own business. So I grew up in family business, and I saw my dad as a business owner. He did everything for us as his family. He also was sending money back to India to support his parents and some siblings back there. So he had a lot of pressure on his shoulders. And as a result of that, uh, you know, he had a successful business, never really struggled from the money perspective, but you could see that something was missing inside of him. And he always struggled with alcoholism. That's something that he used as a coping mechanism. So at a very young age, I started to study his behavior because when he drank too much, he was a different person. And I didn't really like it. So I was trying to figure out when he would drink and how much he would drink. And that just led me on a path of, you could say, psychology and understanding human beings, particularly men and entrepreneurship and the relationship between women and men, family units, as well as at a very young age, probably around 12 years old, I started to study the brain. So at that time, people called it brain science. And so today, fast forward, you can say things like neuroscience. So I've been studying that for 30 plus years. And so that gave me a tool set to be able to work with individuals and help them really succeed from a performance standpoint. So my background academically and business wise is all about high performance. And so that's the strategy, the systems, and the science behind that. And so that's where we built an entire organization. We did research. We partnered up with 20 different universities and research institutions in Canada and the US to help solve this one question, which was how can a business professional perform at their highest potential and live a high quality of life? Because there's a lot of people that are performers, like really good performers, but they don't have that quality of life. So how do you actually have both? So that's been my mission. That's what we do day in and day out in terms of working with individuals. And so that's hence where I am today.
Yeah, it is amazing, amazing. Yeah, because there is such a big gap between what people know and what people do.
Mhm.
Yes, and people can be like walking encyclopedia of so much knowledge, but it doesn't mean that they do what they already know. Yes,
Mhm.
and high performances in the businesses, many companies study what they do a different way. Yes, so let's speak about this today. Like what is behind the high performance?
Oh, wow. There's so many factors behind high performance, but we break it down into three areas, right? The first one is strategy. The second one is state, and then the third one is systems. So we break down everything into those categories. That's how we teach and train and coach and advise people. So strategy is essentially your approach. It's the path that you are taking to achieve a particular goal. Now, you could be a high performer, but if your strategy isn't good, if you have the wrong path, then you're going to be working hard and executing, but you're not going in the right direction. And we see a lot of people uh, that happens to a lot of people in business, right? They have a poor strategy, but they're really hardworking and they're putting everything into it, but they don't end up where they want to be. So that's the first element, right? And the strategy comes from a number of different things. It comes from having the right information, having the right data, making effective decisions, recalibrating, allocating your resources properly, planning effectively. There's a number of factors there. The next bucket is the state bucket, which is how we show up every moment. And that is a tough one because it's a choice. It's always a choice. And state is broken down into a number of different factors. And so we show people how to show up better because here's the research right behind this is the average person, their performance can fluctuate by up to 65% any given time of the day or any given day of the week. So what does that mean? Someone can show up in the morning a 10 out of 10 and be a 4 out of 10 in the afternoon, right? Maybe they got a phone call from a spouse. Maybe they got into an argument. Maybe they got into a disagreement with someone. Maybe they just ate something and they weren't feeling 100%, or they're just tired. They didn't get enough sleep. So the average person, that's what their performance fluctuates by. So if we can show them how to be more consistent, how to show up in a higher state more often, and do things like, how do you have more clarity? How do you have more creativity? How do you have more motivation, drive, energy? All of those things, better decision making. Those are all the things that we teach cognitively. That person is going to show up in a better state. So if you put two people side by side and give them the exact same strategy, but one person has a better state, they're going to outperform the other one. Then the third bucket is really the systems. The systems are things like habits, routines, technology that you use, automations, all those kinds of things in terms of the systems, KPIs, measurements. What are the things that, people use to achieve their strategy? So that's the systems aspect. So those are the three buckets that we take a look at. And if someone is not really getting to where they want to be, it falls within one of those three buckets. We just have to identify one or more, right? If not, sometimes all of them. And so we have to identify which bucket, what elements of each bucket, and then help them improve those areas.
Yeah, that is a great insight. And let's speak about this life and work harmony. How can people achieve that high results and perform at the high level and still have life work harmony?
Yeah, the most important thing to understand is that people talk about work-life balance, right? And when people talk about work-life balance, they equate it to time. That's typically what they equate it to. But work-life harmony is not just about time, it's more about energy. Because many people have time, but they don't have the energy to do certain things because they're so tired working, and then they come home and they don't have the energy to spend with their family or play with their kids or whatever that looks like. So energy is actually far more important than the time factor. Time is important too, but energy is far more important. So understanding that harmony is all about energy. And we as human beings, and even Einstein said this, he said, everything is energy and it's as simple as that, right? One of the best, most well-known scientists in the world said everything is energy. So we are energy. So what we need to determine is our work life giving us energy for our personal life, and is our personal life giving us energy for our work life? So what ends up happening for most people is that they work so hard in their work life that they don't have enough energy for their personal life, and the personal life starts to deteriorate in some way, shape, or form. Maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's feeling guilty, maybe it's their health. And then that in turn doesn't give them energy for their work life. So it becomes a cycle of not having enough energy, trying to keep up, right? And so sometimes people have bursts of energy. Maybe they landed a really big client and they made a lot of money this year, but it's not necessarily sustainable, right? It's not really helping them long term. So it's really about sustainability, and sustainability leads to results. And so that's where most people are struggling, is that they have this belief that you have to sacrifice for long term. So everybody as an entrepreneur has to sacrifice for a period of time, whether it's, when early on in the years, maybe even later on as you're growing or expanding, whatever that looks like. But when sacrifice becomes extended, it turns into suffering. And that's the challenge. A lot of people are suffering rather than sacrificing, because sacrificing isn't long term. It's not meant to be long term. It's meant to be short term. And so that's the difference. And we just need to understand that as entrepreneurs, because sacrificing can be healthy. Suffering is not healthy. It's unhealthy.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And you as a specialist in neuroscience, let's speak about the subconscious part of results, because people act according as they have been programmed. As it is not about the trainings that they attend and learn how to do things, it is about how they programmed and what is their habitual behavior. Because most of things that they do it habitually. And let's speak about this importance of reprogramming your mind in order to start doing other things, in order to be more efficient in what we do.
Yeah, and that really stems from what we really want. So programming our mind comes from first knowing what we really want. And most people don't know what they want, because what they think they want has been really, you talk about programming. It's basically, yeah, over the years, what we've done is we've developed a belief system based on how we've, our education, how we've grown up, our parents, society, movies, friends, all of these factors have determined and shaped our belief system. So most people's goals are based on a specific belief system. But a lot of times those belief systems aren't helping an individual really find fulfillment, right? And everything that most people do, that we all do, is we do things in search of, to seek out a particular feeling or feelings. And we have to consciously identify what feelings that we truly want and where we actually get the fulfillment, or where those feelings actually arise from. And are they healthy and are they sustainable? So the whole point of what I'm saying is, a lot of times people are looking to achieve something and they actually achieve it and they don't feel that much better, or they feel it temporarily and then they have to find something new. We have to go back and say, what gives us long lasting fulfillment? What enables us to continue to feel a certain way if we want to feel that way? And then determine what those goals are. And then we can reprogram ourselves. Okay, so that's why it's important. Most people will stay in the same programming because they are led down a certain path. And that path isn't necessarily something that they wanted for themselves. So to reprogram ourselves and our mindset, we have to do a number of things. First of all, we have to understand how our mind works. And that isn't always easy. So we've actually broken it down. You know, our mind is when we say mind, we typically say mindset, right? It's our way of thinking. And so there's a number of different factors that lead to mindset. And so you can say psychological factors, such as we have this thing called identity. Identity is who we believe we are. And identity is a core thing that really shapes our behavior. So when you were talking about being habits and being habitualized, we habitualize ourselves based on our identity, because the whole term of identity, the Latin root, means to be the same, to be consistent with. And so we will only do things that are in alignment with our identity. So to change our habits, we need to change our identity. Right? To get off autopilot, we have to consciously change our identity. And that's where it stems from. So once we shift our identity and shift our beliefs, then we can shift our behavior. The challenge is a lot of people try to shift their behavior, which does work to a certain degree, because that can help shift your identity and shift your belief system. But you have to go a little bit deeper, because sometimes we all hit a roadblock where we come up with challenges. And then we have to identify, okay, what is a real belief system behind that? And what's my true identity? And then we can actually continue that cycle of building new habits.
Yeah, so let's speak a little more detailed about this. Yes, so in order to change behavior and change results as the sequence of this behavior, we have to change identity. Yeah, because if we don't change identity, as you said, and we just do something and then we sabotage ourselves because that success, which doesn't align with that identity which we have, right?
That's identity. Yeah.
So as Maxwell Maltz in his book Psycho-Cybernetics explained that people have two images. one image that they project to outside world, and another image that they have about themselves. Yes, like the one image how they see themselves in the mirror and how they communicate, and that inner self image controls all the results. So if people don't change that self image that they have, it doesn't matter how many trainings they will attend or how many books they will read. If they don't change that identity and they don't see themselves in a new way, their old self-image will continue to create their results, to determine how they do things. Yes,
Yeah.
so the primary should be starting from, as you said, like identify your big goals, and then identify who you have to become, right? Because we don't get what we want, we just get who we are, because everything what we get in life is just reflection of what is going inside of us. Yes, so the primary should be that analyzing who I have to become in order to achieve those goals, and start embody that self-image, new self-image of that higher self, and start thinking, feeling, and acting as that person. Because when we do something, like our actions, they cause reactions. Yes, and
Yes.
our
Yeah.
actions can change only when we change.
Mm-hmm.
That is why there are so many different trainings, and only in US billions of dollars companies spend just to do different trainings and teach people to learn, like teach people new things, just to teach them information. But because they don't help them to change that identity, this doesn't help much, because people can be very excited, motivated when they attend events, and they even can decide that they want to do something, but the decision doesn't mean that they will start doing this, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
they get excited and think that, okay, like from next week we going to do that, and they can even write this, but it doesn't matter that they will do that, and in few days they again drawn back to the same patterns of habitual behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you help your clients to create that new identity? I also like this statement, as Joe Dispenza said, that in order to create new reality, you have to create your new personality. So how do you help your clients to make that shift and start seeing themselves as the person who they have to become?
Yeah, there's a number of different things. So first of all, awareness is very important. That's the first step, I would say. So that is through the teaching. That's what we talked about. But application is very important as well, even more important. So most people don't know, and that's why when we talk about the science, we actually show them the different layers. Like we have diagrams that show them how their mindset operates. And so when they look at the diagram, they can say, oh, these are the different layers to my mindset, and these are the things that I need to shift and be aware of. For example, it starts with the true self. Joe Dispenza, many other practitioners talk about, there's a source, right? Or some people call it spirit or soul, whatever that is. Then it's accompanied by what we call an ego. Outside of the ego is then the identity, and then we have beliefs, and then there's a whole series of things outside of that. So we work with them on each layer, and there's over 15 different layers to people's mindset. So we identify each of those layers and then slowly work on them over time. You can't really change that overnight, but the best way to change it overnight, if someone wanted to, because sometimes people can't, is if you can shift their identity. Like if you can really get someone to shift their identity and put them in an environment that supports their identity, because that's the other part, right? Someone can change their identity, but the environment will pull them back into that same old identity. So the environment is very important. That's why, for example, people that go to rehab that have addictions, alcohol or drug use, when they go back in that same environment, they have the same issues, right? Because they can't get out of that environment. It just supports their old identity. So there's a number of different factors that we pay attention to. But to really get down to the identity and how to change it, we have to understand who they are at the true self. So every human beings, we all have a true self. Some people, like Joe Dispenza, he talks about having a universal, like an individual frequency, a unique frequency that we all come into this world with, that gets distorted or tainted through our life experiences. This has been talked about through ancient times as well, right? We all have a unique pattern, and that unique pattern is our true self or our soul or our spirit. And we need to be in touch with that. So everybody's soul is different. We have to know what our soul is. And that requires a lot of deep searching. Sometimes it's meditation, mindfulness practices. We get people to go away for at least a couple of days, maybe even a few days, with no family members, no friends, just on themselves. And we take them through a series of exercises. They do it. We're not even there with them. And they do it on their own because they have to peel back. So the identity and the mind is very much like an onion. You have to peel all the top layers off to get to the core. And when you get to the core and identify what it is, you can put all those other layers back. But now they are aligned with your identity. And so understanding who we are at the core self. Let me give an example. My true self, my core self, I have an affinity towards animals. I have an affinity towards science. I have very much like an engineering type of a mind. That's who I am at the core self. And a trainer and a teacher, right? These are core things that are natural to me ever since I was a kid. These are things that I gravitate towards. There's other things as well, but I have to acknowledge that. I have to respect that. I have to say this is part of who I am. Even if I wanted to change, these are things that are going to naturally gravitate towards. Every human being has that. But once we find out what that is, once we uncover what that is, it's extremely powerful. Because now that is feeding us. That is giving us energy, because it requires energy to hold that back. So once we release the layers, that energy now feeds us to change our identity. And it becomes much easier because now we feel in alignment. We have more energy to do that. So those are the types of exercises and you can say the process that we take people through.
Yeah, yes, there's a very important awareness and consciousness, because we see the life through the prism of our beliefs, yes, and those paradigms which are in subconscious mind. And raising awareness is the first step to get better results. And so thank you so much. Before we wrap up this episode, what is one thing that you would like to share with driven and ambitious entrepreneurs and business owners?
Yeah, well, I would say one of the biggest factors, it comes back to energy, because energy really drives everything. Energy is important for entrepreneurs because it gives us the fuel to be able to perform, but it also radiates out to other people. So to be a good entrepreneur, you want to be supported by good people, and we have to get those good people into our life. So when we don't have high energy, when we don't have the right energy, we're not attracting the right people. And that is the core to success in entrepreneurship, because it's not about us as individuals, it's us about teams. And a core part of that also, a lot of our energy comes from and is used up by our emotions. And so we have to learn how to be the master of our emotions, because that is even more powerful. From a scientific perspective, right? There's a spiritual aspect, which is, you gravitate towards people with similar types of emotions. We attract people with similar types of emotions. So if we project better emotions, we're going to attract people with better emotions. But scientifically as well, they've done a lot of studies where they show that when you set a goal, that stronger and the greater number of, I'm going to say, empowering emotions that you tie to that goal greatly increases your chances of success. Why? Because you become more persistent, resilient, consistent, and passionate about that. And so emotions are critical when it comes to execution. And this not only applies to us as individuals, as business owners and entrepreneurs, but also for our team members, because many of our team members are not masters of their emotions. So guess what? If you have an organization of 100 people and 80% of them, I'm going to say the number is typically higher, of individuals don't know how to master their emotions, you got an entire organization of individuals that don't know how to manage their emotions and their goals and their execution and their mindset and all these things. So what does that do to the business? So this is what I say, when we show our employees how to manage these things outside of the technical skills, our business becomes that much more powerful. So technical training and advising and coaching is one side, but how to show them how to perform better and all the things that we talked about here today, that is even more powerful. Because that then takes that 65% variable in their performance and shrinks it down to 30%, 20%, 10%, right? And that's what we need to be successful in our business.
Yes, exactly. That is why 85% of success is mindset, and only 15 is the skills and tactics. Yes, thank you so much, Purdeep. So we discussed this very big topic in this very short time, and I really would like to continue this conversation with you in our next episode, and we can speak about managing emotions and why emotional intelligence is so important.
Great. Yeah. Thank you, Elena, for having me.
Yes, so I'm looking forward to meet you again in our future episodes. And thank you again for being amazing guest on our podcast.
Thank you.